Hello, and welcome to That Squirrel Speaks. Today is Saturday, December 29th, and this is a bonus episode. So if you're looking for a regular podcast that has knitting content, this is not it. In this podcast, I will exclusively be talking about a follow-up to an earlier bonus episode I did. So thanks to Patreon and PayPal donors, I am doing an extra bonus episode every month. And so last month I talked about how I modify sweaters to fit me. I am a fat lady. And I have different needs for a sweater. And so I talked about how I modify those. So you can find that in the bonus episodes. But after I did that, one of the comments, or several of the comments I got on it was, great, that's super helpful. Now, how do I get past the mental side of knitting myself a sweater? Meaning, how do I get into a headspace where I'm willing to commit time, money, blood, sweat, and tears, whatever, to creating a garment for myself in this moment? And so that's what this one is going to be all about. So I'm going to talk about the most comfortable things to talk about first. The most comfortable for me to talk about. So basically I'm going to talk about the money, the time, and the kind of those logistical hurdles that I got that caused me to want to, those are not hurdles, but those are the motivators that wanted me to get past the hurdle to create clothing for myself. I'm going to be specific. I mean, I probably will say sweaters just because primarily I have a knitting content in my podcast, but I really do mean anything, clothing, what have you. And then after that, I'll make a transition into more of the place that I feel less comfortable in, which is talking about what we might loosely coin body positivity or self-acceptance or any one of those things. And really, I'm not even really super aware which one of those things it is, because I think body positivity has more of a cultural reference point versus what I'm probably talking about is more the individual. So, can you tell I'm not super clear? But let's get into it. So the first thing we'll talk about is money. It does cost more money to make a sweater for yourself if you're plus size. And this specifically is if you're plus size. It does cost more. Period. However, that doesn't mean that you have to knit your first sweater in Madeline Tosh or Hedgehog Fibers, or it doesn't have to be a $30 a skein sweater. I actually don't own any sweaters that cost $30 a skein, and I've been knitting for 20 years. As an example, this is a sweater knit from Barrett Wool's Wisconsin Woolen Spun and the fingering weight. This happens to be Quaker Gray. It is a long sleeve, full length sweater, not a tunic length, but a full, to the fullest part of your hip length sweater. And for me, I'm a size 26, 28 with maybe a size 30 butt. I'm not sure anymore. For me, this sweater weighs less than 400 grams, which means it costs approximately $72. Now, that's not an insignificant amount of money, but it's a lot different than thinking about trying to knit a worsted weight sweater out of Madeline Tosh. A worsted weight sweater takes a lot more yarn to knit when you're plus size, because if you think about it, your yarn is sold by weight, right? It's not sold by meters, it's sold by weight. And if you think about a heavyweight sweater for you, it's called heavy for a reason. You put it on a scale, it weighs more. So it's going to take more skeins of yarn to make. So if cost is something that is a deciding point for you, look for sport or fingering weights. And again, look for not indie dyers. I mean, I love indie dyers and they're awesome, but it's not realistic for me to spend $30 a skein on a skein of yarn for me for a sweater. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy them in other ways. It just means that's not really financially accessible to me. And I know it's not to a lot of other people too. That said, I mean, I love all of my sweaters that are knit with, I have Lion Brand sweater that's fisherman's wool. That's 7 years old. 9 years old. I don't even know. It was back when Iron Bear and Fisherman's Wool cost like $5 for that giant skein. Maybe it was $8, but it was an exciting time for me. It was not an exciting time for wool producers, but it was an exciting time for me. But so that's the reality of the money. It does cost more. But guess what? It costs more for me to buy clothes anyway. Like, Lane Bryant's not cheap, y'all. And at least I know that if I'm investing that much money in a garment for myself, it's gonna last for more than a season. I am really over spending money on disposable clothing. Like, it's hard to find clothing that fits me, so I have to invest a lot more time, and then I have to usually invest more money because the items are more expensive, and typically if I'm buying stuff, lots of times I have to buy it on the internet, which means I'm returning things and it's like more complicated, and then you get into this weird mindset of just like buying anything that will fit on your body, which is it's bad in so many ways. Like, it's bad for you in terms of like when you look in the mirror and you don't see yourself reflected in what you're wearing at all. It's bad for you when you have to accept lesser quality because there is not that much great quality clothing out there for plus size people. And then again, you just accumulate these clothes that you're not even really wearing because it fits you, and like you should hoard it, right? Like, it's a starvation mentality. It's just a starvation of a different kind. Like, if it fits on my body, I should get it. I should, get it into my possession because I don't know, I may never find anything else again, which probably sounds really ridiculous to a lot of people who've not had to have that struggle, but it's real. So that was like not what I meant to talk about when I was talking about money, but I think it's relevant. Time. Also, it takes more time to make a plus size sweater. Period. I don't know what to tell you, it takes longer. There's literally nothing else. What did I even write down? I wrote down something for time. If you're a product knitter, you might not want to make yourself a sweater. It might not be your jam. If you're a process knitter, then what does it matter if it takes you more time? Enjoy your knitting. But be realistic. If you're a product knitter and you know that you don't want to invest months and months, depending on how much knitting time you have, how much speed you have, how much familiarity with knitting you have so that you don't have to reference a pattern, but you may not want to knit a sweater. Like, just be honest with yourself too of, do you really want to knit a sweater? You don't have to knit a sweater. You are a real knitter even if you don't knit a sweater. I give you permission to never knit a sweater if it's something you don't want to do. If it's been convenient to say, I won't knit a sweater until I'm size X, and you have rotely said that because it's comfortable to say I won't live a life until I'm smaller than this size, stop saying it because that hurts other people. And you. Just think about other people though. But it's okay if you don't want to knit yourself a sweater. You don't have to knit a sweater. I absolve you. Go forth without sweaters. Okay, so now let's talk more about the woo-woo side of it. And by the woo-woo side of it, I mean, specifically, this is my answer to but how do I decide to make a sweater for myself in the body that I'm in now versus the body I think I should have, or the body that I think I will have, or the body that I will allow myself to live, the body that I have to get to allow myself to live. Because let's face it, y'all, that's what you're doing. I don't mean you specifically, but when you ask that question, that's what you're asking, right? That's a universal thing that a lot of women go through. Not just fat women, women who have other things that they don't like about themselves. Some men, lots of human beings in this culture decide that we're not going to do something until X, right? I'm not going to go ride a bicycle until I lose 100 pounds because if anybody sees the giantness of my butt spread across a bicycle seat, they will clearly run in horror. Guess what? They don't. And if they do, good luck living in this world, Buttercup, because that's not the worst thing you're going to see. That's what I'm talking about now. The how to get over that hurdle of I am not worthy of knitting myself a sweater right now. This is how I feel like I have gotten over that hurdle. I can only speak from my own perspective. I acknowledge that the following things probably have made it easier for me to get over that hurdle. One of those things is that I've been fat for a long time. Like, I've pretty much been in a Lane Bryant size from junior high on. So that means I've been fat for more than half of my life. Like, Lane Bryant fat. Like, there's different kinds of fat, right? But I've been Lane Bryant fat for more than half of my life. I have never thought about it that way, but I have. And that's to say that, like, sometimes it takes a while to sit with some things, right? Like, sometimes it takes a while to absorb some things. It also means that I don't have a memory of my adult self in a body that's that much different than this one. Like, yeah, I've gained 40 pounds since I had a baby. But when you're already like Lane Bryant fat, you're just a little bit more Lane Bryant fat. It's not like you went from normative to non-normative. I didn't creep over that BMI line and have a memory of it. I don't have a memory of myself in a size 12 as a romantic partner to somebody, as an adult functioning in the world. So my adulthood has always been in a body that was pretty similar to this one. And I think that in some ways makes it easier for me to accept that body and to live in it as it is now and not what it has been or what I think it should be. So I acknowledge that. Let's see, what else? I think it also, this is probably going to get really touchy, but I think it also allows me to release a little autonomy. Like, I think a lot of the reason that women in Western culture are so preoccupied, like, and I don't mean that other people in other cultures are not, but so intensely preoccupied with the gaze of other people, right? Like that, only that's what it is. Like, we're so preoccupied with our bodies meeting some sort of like stamp of approval, is because we, especially in America, have had such a long history of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, that you are the master of your own destiny, that you're 100% in control of everything that you do, and all of these messages constantly being given to you mean that you're 100% in control of what your body looks like. Except you're not. Like, not. And I know some of you out there are like, okay, just release it for a second. Like, 95% of diets fail over 5 years. Let's not get into an argument about that statistic. Like, that's okay. Like, I'm totally fine with you if you do believe that you are 100% control of your health at all times. Like, we don't need to argue about it. But from my perspective, I am not 100% in control of my physical self at all times. Like, I do not have the power to change everything about my physical self and how other people read it at all times. And the movement towards that has created more peace in my life. So I feel like that's a big triggery thing. And I'm feeling like I feel some of you like, it's okay. You don't have to agree with anything I say. But I think that personal release has given me more peace, more acceptance, and a greater ability to treat the body I have, the person I am, with the respect that I would hopefully treat a friend. Quite frankly, the lady I don't even know at the grocery store next to me. Like, let's not discuss how cruel we are to ourselves. Except we probably should, but you know what I mean. Another thing that makes it probably easier for me to get over this hurdle is I'm in a relationship with somebody who's only known me in this body or something pretty similar to it. Like, he knew me when, like, we met when I was fat. I continue to be fat. So that helps. There's not, like, I'm not dealing with the chain, like, I don't know what that would feel like, but I could imagine that it would be more challenging in your headspace. Also, oh my gosh, I feel like this is such a huge one that makes it easier for me. I'm an introvert and I work from home. My self-acceptance is so much better. I'm not saying it's perfect. Let's be full disclosure here. I won't wear regular bathing suit bottom. I'm just not there yet. So I'm not 100% like, but I'm on the path. And that path has been made smoother by the fact that I actually enjoy being around other humans who might have different concepts of what I should look like. Annie, the dog, is my only coworker, and she has literally never told me how many Weight Watchers points are in the snack I'm eating. Never. In fact, she would rather me give her that snack, not to deny me the calories, but just because she enjoys food perhaps more than I do. And I don't think I can discount, I don't think I can overstate how important that is. I don't know how I would, it's much easier for my like positive self to be built up and remain there when it's not under constant threat from other people who are not in a good space about their own bodies, right? Like, that is so much easier. It doesn't mean that I don't get torn down, but it means that I'm not getting torn down every day. There are certainly certain days, there are days I go through my whole day and never once decide that I hate my body. It's amazing. And I'll be completely honest with you, I think a lot of that is because I don't interact with other humans. So I acknowledge that that is a huge privilege for me. Now, some of you are like, I like humans, I want to be around them all the time. Like, that's, I don't know what that's like. That's crazy. Okay, so then what else there? Oh, and then finally, I think one of the reasons it's easier for me is because I see that it makes it easier for other people to take up space if I'll take up space. So just like I follow fat women on Instagram and social media and things like that, like if those fat women were not brave enough to be in a sports bra and tight knickers doing yoga, then I probably would not feel as empowered to do the same. Not that I'm posting pictures of myself in yoga gear, but you know what I mean. Like, you gotta take up space so the lady next to you can take up space. So that dude over there can take up space. Like, sometimes you gotta put your big butt on a bicycle seat so somebody else can be like, well, if she can put her butt on a bicycle seat, why can't I put my butt on a bicycle seat? You know what I mean? Also, like, 20 years ago when I started knitting patterns never went up to my size. Like, ever. 0 times. 0. Unless I got a man's sweater that might go up to my size. But probably not. Now, it's an anomaly when a sweater doesn't go up to my size in a knitting pattern. So if I'm out there knitting things, buying patterns that go to my size, then there's going to be that, they're going to see that there's dollars there. I don't know. That's what I think. Okay. So now I'm going to probably get like on a little bit of a like feminism / self-acceptance soapbox. But before I do that, even if you think everything I say after this is wackadoodle, that's cool, that's fine. But this is the thing. If you are whatever X size, and you think you can't knit a sweater until you are X minus 3 size. This is why you should knit a sweater when you're X size. You can make it X minus 3 later. Okay, sweaters with 10 inches of positive ease are the thing to do, right? Like 50% of new knitting patterns, I don't know, I'm making that number up, but it feels like 50% of new knitting patterns have more than 5 inches of positive ease in them anyway. So make a sweater that fits you now, and even like if something happens and you're 10 inches smaller next year, well, you can just wear that sweater anyway. If not, get a fat friend. We're out here, we want to be friends. Get a fat friend, give her your sweater. Or you can just take that thing in if you decide that you don't want 10 inches of positive ease in your sweater because you're too good for that. I don't want 10 inches of positive ease in my sweater. You can take your sweater in and it's really not that crazy. Like, go into your closet and look at the sweaters in your closet. There's a seam. There's a seam here. There's a seam here. You can make a seam. You can essentially steek, but without cutting. Just seam the sweater. And literally, you can lose like an inch without too much difficulty at all. An inch, I mean like an inch on each side. Easy peasy. Just seam it. You don't have to cut it. You don't have to do anything. Just seam it smaller. I'm telling you. You can do it. You have the power. Okay, so now soapbox time. So part of getting past, part of like moving towards self-acceptance is just realizing the water is wet. Right? Like when the fish is swimming in its ocean its whole life, it doesn't know the water is wet. Because that's all it's ever known. So in 1998, I think, because that's the year this book came out, I had already been fat for, as we'd established, I don't know, that's 20 years ago, so, oh wow, I lied earlier, I've been fat for 3/4 of my life. So by the time I got to about the halfway point, this book came out. It's called Fatso. It's by Marilyn Wan, and it was literally the first time I realized the water was wet about my body. Literally. Now, I will be honest with you, I've not read this book in a very long time, but you can see it is rather well worn. It's actually, the binding is broken in one place. I have this actual tattoo on my leg. Right here. You can't see me. I'm pointing to my right thigh, my right calf. I have this tattoo. Realizing the water was wet was really powerful. It was the first time that somebody said, yeah, you don't need to be ashamed of yourself. And it took a really long time for me to even begin to allow that conversation to happen in my head. Like, so again, I've had some practice, right? 20 years ago this book came out. But part of transitioning to self-acceptance is just realizing how much you're told not to accept yourself. Like by other factors. Like just being aware of the messages that you are receiving on a daily basis. And I know some of you are going to be like, paranoid face. Just fine. You can think that. Probably don't want to watch anymore. But if you're like, then let's keep going. It's just being aware of how often you are told that you don't have a right to exist, that you don't have a right to take up space in the universe, that you don't have a right to have a voice, that you don't have a right to have joy, that you don't have any of these rights because you are not X, whatever that X is. And that just, I feel like just the awareness of it is a huge step. It's a huge step when you start to see those things in a critical way. Like when you start to be aware of those conversations that you just were a part of before. Like I was at I think like a knitting pipeline retreat or something, or on the trip to a knitting pipeline retreat. And Malia said something that was really powerful. It was Rhymes with Maria, who had a podcast. Was talking about like, yeah, I don't want to hear what you don't eat. I want to hear what you do eat. And like, I had never thought about how many conversations I have had in my life about what other people don't eat, what I don't eat, what she doesn't eat, what they don't eat, why it's right, why it's wrong, what's clean, what's dirty, what's guilty, what's bad, what's good. Like, I literally did not know that water was wet. And so after that, I notice it so much more intensely. And it's not painful to notice. It's like a softening. It's a softening of how you've treated yourself, I think, when you start to notice it. When you start to realize, like, no wonder I've treated myself really poorly for a long time when this is what I have been fed. And what I've taken willingly. I am completely culpable. What I have just taken in because that's what was given to me. And I think that's a huge pivoting point. Just this summer, I went to pick up my child at a sleepover party, and there was a very normal-sized lady and another very normal-sized lady. And they obviously had known each other because their children knew each other. And I was picking up my child talking to the lady about something not about food. And then another lady came up, and one woman was thinner than the other. The woman who had cupcakes at her house because her child had a birthday party was not as small as the other woman. And they just immediately started talking about how bad it was that they had all these cupcakes in the house and blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, look at me observe you. It was not a judgment for me. I wasn't like, oh, you're bad for talking about that. It was just like, yeah, again, the wetness of that water. Whew, that water is wet. It's everywhere. So once you realize that the water's wet, what I have done, or what I try to continue to do, to make my life as gentle to myself as I can, not that I don't enjoy a good flagellation, because I do, but I try to break off from it occasionally. But like, pay attention to your feed as much as you have paid attention to the food you put in your mouth. Like, and by your feed, I mean your Instagram feed, I mean your Facebook feed, I mean television. Media that you're consuming is at the top of my list of awareness because I am not around a lot of other people who might be giving me like, ughness. So it's a lot easier to control the media that's coming into yourself than it is to control the people that you must interact with, and I acknowledge that. But the media that you intake can help to bolster yourself against those other messages that you don't have as much control of, right? So, and by the way, I don't in any way mean that Instagram or Facebook are bad, because I don't enjoy Facebook, but I do enjoy Instagram quite a lot. But it is important to be aware. This is just something that I had screenshot because I thought it was interesting. But PositivePsychologyProgram.com cites a couple of different studies about our consumption of media and how they make us feel. And there's like a lot of this information out there. This is just a little snippet in case you're just like, yeah. But so they talk about lots of different social medias and how they affect us. But specifically, these are talking about the link between social media, and I'm just reading directly. Another link between social media use and both mood and body concerns in women specifically. Spending just 10 minutes browsing Facebook instead of a neutral control website resulted in more negative food, more facial, hair, and skin-related concerns. 10 minutes on Facebook versus 10 minutes on a neutral control site resulted in measurable more negative food, facial, hair, and skin-related concerns. 10 minutes. And how much time are we on those sites? Another study, that was in 2015. And like, hello, it's only gotten worse since then. So then in 2016, another study was talking about participants, and this was about like college-age women. They were shown one of three sets of images. images of celebrities on Instagram, images of unknown but equally attractive peers on Instagram, or a set of controlled travel images from Instagram. Unsurprisingly, those who viewed the celebrity and peer images experienced a more negative mood and greater dissatisfaction with their bodies than those who viewed the travel images. This effect was mediated or explained by appearance comparisons. So, I don't know in fact, I think Instagram specifically has like this amazing ability to connect me to people that do things that I love. Like, I feel so much more connected to the wool community, so much more connected to fiber artists, so much more connected to sewists, so much more connected to fat broads because of Instagram. Like, so I'm not in any way. But the importance is to realize what you're viewing. If I decided tomorrow that I really wanted to do yoga, and the only people I saw doing yoga on Instagram were size 4, 6 size ladies. They were all white. They were all wealthy enough to afford, what is the fancy brand? Lululemon. Then I would not have an access point into that activity. I would think, oh, I cannot do that activity until I lose 150 pounds, until I can afford $100 pair of leggings. I don't have access to that. But if I follow people like Amber Karnes, who is a bigger lady who does yoga, she kind of looks like me. Like, she does stuff. Well, I should be able to do that too. It gives me a better access point. Jessamine is another one who's awesome because she is doing yoga in a non-size 2 body, but she's also doing yoga with a different attitude. Like, so I can see elements of my personality in her that then I can, again, have an access point to. So if we're only looking at people doing stuff that are a size, not size we are, then of course we're not going to think we can live life for that size, because all we see is people living life at that size. Try to find people living life at lots of different sizes. At the size you are, at a bigger size, at a smaller size, at a bigger size. You know, look for it. It's not going to be given to you. The media doesn't like us. You're going to have to look. Maybe we should totally do a Ravelry. Okay, the Ravelry group, I'm going to try to remember to start a page of like self-acceptance Instagram people. If I forget, somebody else take the reins. Because we know who I am. So part of that too is when you are on Instagram or you are on Facebook or you are on whatever, and you're getting ads that you don't like, you can report them. Okay, I report them. I'm not telling you what to do. When I'm on Instagram and I get a diet ad, I report it as misleading, or unhelpful or something. Is there something like that that's very close? I report them, and guess what? I don't see them. I can't remember the last time I saw a diet ad on Instagram. Just can't even remember. I report them every time. Guess what? They don't give them to me. So it's just important to me to remember when I'm looking at Instagram, when I'm looking at Facebook. I sometimes... Auntie's Roadshow will mess me up sometimes, right? Like, my husband and I like to watch Auntie's Roadshow, and occasionally I will get really depressed that I don't have any awesome stuff in my attic to sell for $500,000 and make my life a magical place. Right? Like, I totally do. Sometimes I get really in a rut, and then I'm like, whoa. It's just a further example that comparison is the death of happiness. So I constantly have to check myself on Instagram and other places. Like, it doesn't mean that I'm impervious to all the nonsense. It just means that I do remember to check myself. Just remember to check yourself occasionally. Stop comparing yourself. Keep your eyes on your own paper. And so then finally, like, I just had to do a lot of work to get okay with myself. And I'm still not okay with myself all the time. But, like, just a lot of work. People will be like, oh yeah, you start feeling better about yourself. Just feel better about yourself. That's ridiculous. That's like, just go siege that castle. Just storm the castle. Just do it. It's a 50-foot wall that you've never been over before, but just do it. It'll just shut you down really quick. You'll just look at it and be like, no, I can't do that. But it's like, it's just been a lot of work, and like, it just, again, over like 30 years of trying to be like okay, and it's not, again, I'm not okay every day, and I'm not okay all the time, and blah, 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 blah. But one thing I do want to do as part of the work, you know, like I read books and I do things and I try that and I try to talk to people and blah, blah, blah. But Amber Karnes, the one I was talking about earlier, who's a yogi, she's doing, what is it called? A body positive rebellion course. It's a free email course that she's doing through her website, bodypositiveyoga.com. Yeah. I'm not an I have not viewed this course materials. I don't know at all what it will be, but I think she's a pretty rad lady, and everything that I've seen her do before, I pretty much am right behind. So I imagine this will be awesome too. So that's something I'm looking forward to doing in the coming year. So yeah, I guess that's all. Next time there will be knitting and perhaps less nervous giggling and more just like joyful giggling. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.